Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a plunge into something deeply personal and I think profoundly practical, self-esteem.
Right.
We've gathered some really fascinating sources that focus on personal growth, on self-mastery, to guide us through what we're calling our mission today.
And that mission is really about understanding what true internal worth looks like. And maybe more importantly, how we can all manage the inevitable criticism that life throws at us.
Sometimes brutal criticism, yeah.
This dive is fundamentally about shifting your internal perception. It really is. We're going to challenge this common belief that your value is external, something that's given to you by your job or achievements or what other people think.
Validation seeking.
Exactly. The real work is about recognizing, or as some of our sources call it, re-knowing, that intrinsic worth you already possess.
Because if we can build that solid internal foundation, that fortress of self-worth, then external judgment, it just loses its devastating power. That's the core mission we're tackling. How do we anchor ourselves so firmly in our own value that the opinions of others simply stop controlling us? Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
I think we should start where most people get tripped up.
The misconceptions.
Yeah. When you hear the phrase high self-esteem, what's the first image that comes to mind?
For a lot of people, it's arrogance, hubris, maybe believing they're superior.
But our sources insist that we have to define true self-esteem by starting with what it is not.
So what is it not?
Well, exactly that. It's often mistaken for ego, and that confusion is, frankly, dangerous. True self-esteem is not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's not about being infallible or believing you can't make mistakes.
In fact, it's almost the opposite, right? The sources say people with low self-worth often put on a kind of a veneer of arrogance as a defense.
It's a mask. And that connects to another big misconception, which is about asking for help.
Oh, that needing help is a sign of weakness. Right. Society champions this idea of the rugged individualist, that vulnerability is failure. But the sources are so clear on this. Asking for help is actually a sign of intelligence and humility.
It shows you recognize your limits.
It shows you value progress over pride. To believe you can solve every single problem alone is, well, it's a subtle form of arrogance. It's the exact opposite of genuine self-worth.
Okay, so if we strip away the ego, the defensiveness, the bragging, what are we left with? What is the bedrock definition here?
It's that re-knowing of forgotten value. It's this deep, settled recognition of a person's intrinsic worth, regardless of their job or their bank account or any kind of social status.
It's more than just a feeling then.
Oh, absolutely. More practically, it's the belief in your capacity to be happy, and this part is critical to help others be happy.
That focus on capacity to be happy and on contribution. It sounds less like a fixed trait and more like a continuous state of being.
It is. It's knowing that you can fall and you'll rise again. Committing an error doesn't suddenly make you a failure. We're all constantly learning.
And that learning requires asking for help sometimes.
Exactly. It all connects.
This links directly to how we treat other people. The sources really emphasize that self-esteem never grows by humiliating or despising others.
Never.
Especially those with less knowledge or experience. If you feel that need to push someone down, you're just signaling to everyone and to yourself that you haven't found your own stable footing yet.
That is a key signal of poor self-worth masked by ego. And our sources offer some really crucial insights into how a solid foundation is built, often coming from early life experiences.
So parenting.
Parenting, coaching, managing. The most significant contributor to high self-esteem mentioned was simply never being humiliated.
That brings up the huge difference in how feedback is delivered, isn't it?
Precisely. You must criticize the action, never the person.
Give us an example of that.
Okay. If a child is told the room is messy, that is a critique of a circumstance and action. It's solvable.
Right.
But if that child is told you are disorganized or you are a slob, that is a label. It's applied to their core being. And that label becomes a thick internal layer, a veil that is incredibly hard to shed later in life.
That is such a fine but, wow, what an essential distinction. You can fix a messy room in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But internalizing the belief that you are fundamentally disorganized, that can stick with you for decades.
It absolutely does. And there was one more powerful insight on this. Observing parents who treated everyone, from a service worker to a CEO, with the same genuine respect.
What does that teach a child?
It teaches that human value is universal. It's not earned through status or education. It just is.
This moves us right into the internal battle then. If a core part of self-esteem is what we tell ourselves,
The self-talk.
we have to look at how much our present is determined by our history and how much by our choices right now. Our sources suggest we're often the ones making it hardest for ourselves by clinging to the past.
That's where we have to draw a really clear line between two words, culpability and responsibility. Or, as the sources put it, the capacity to respond. These two ideas describe two radically different relationships with your history.
Wait, let's unpack that distinction fully. I think a lot of listeners, they genuinely struggle to separate a painful history from their present self.
Well, culpability means you spend your life blaming others for past hurts. Maybe you were neglected, you didn't get the affection you deserved, and that history is real.
Of course.
But in the culpability position, the person holds on to that pain. They choose, consciously or not, to let the past stay alive.
But why would anyone choose to hold on to that kind of pain?
Because that victim position can become an anchor. It justifies a present lack of joy. It's a rationale. I can't be happy now because of what they did to me back then.
So it gives the past total power over the present.
It makes the past the cause and the present the effect. It thickens that veil of self-pity and anger.
So the past isn't haunting them. They're, choosing to house the ghost.
That's a great way to put it. Precisely. Responsibility, on the other hand, is a conscious decision to choose freedom.
The capacity to respond.
It's the capacity to declare, my past will influence me, yes, but it will not determine my present or my future. And this choice, while not easy, is always possible.
It's not about saying what happened was okay.
Not at all. It's about recognizing that your capacity to respond belongs only to you, right here, right now.
And the moment you step into that responsibility, you gain that internal solidity.
You do. But if you stick with culpability, you stay fragile. And that is when criticism hits like a devastating weapon.
Okay, here's where it all connects. Why does external judgment affect us so profoundly when we don't have that internal solidity?
It's because when your self-esteem is unbuilt, you're constantly seeking external validation. Your internal operating system is basically running a constant query. Tell me what I'm worth. Am I okay? Do I count?
And a criticism is a negative answer to that query.
It's more than that. It's not just new negative information. It lands on and heightens an existing internal doubt. The critique merely validates the worst fears you already have about yourself. It instantly thickens that veil of inadequacy.
And that internal doubt often gets reinforced by language, by labels, especially from authority figures, doctors, teachers.
Oh, absolutely. The sources question whether these professionals would be more cautious if they truly realized the lifelong impact of their words. Think about hearing, "You are hypertensive for life," or "You will soon be diabetic."
Those labels stick. They become an identity.
And often a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the person internalizes it. I am a patient. I am chronically ill. It affects their capacity to respond. We actually have a powerful anecdote that illustrates this perfectly.
Okay, tell us about the case of severe hypertension.
This was a young woman whose blood pressure was always alarmingly high. At the clinic, at home, everywhere. She had a great doctor, but nothing they tried seemed to work.
So what was her relationship like with the actual device, the blood pressure monitor?
She said she felt horror every time she even approached it. So the intervention was, well, it was unconventional. She was asked to change her relationship with the machine.
How do you do that?
She had to transform it, decorate it with stickers, give it a funny mustache and eyes, paint it, anything to make it look friendly, even ridiculous.
Turn the symbol of fear into something approachable. That's a beautiful metaphor for recontextualizing.
The change was immediate. Her blood pressure numbers changed completely. Her doctor was stunned. She wasn't just measuring a fixed external circumstance, she was measuring her own body's reaction to the fear she was projecting onto the device.
Wow. So if we broaden that out, what does this mean for someone projecting fear onto, a credit card statement or a scary email from their boss? Should they draw a funny face on their bills?
The principle is exactly the same, even if the execution is internal. The woman was projecting her unconscious fear onto a symbol. Her body responded to her fear, not the objective numbers.
Everything is a relationship.
Everything. The circumstances, the debt, the diagnosis, the tough boss, they are real. They count. Absolutely. But taking responsibility for how you relate to those circumstances, for transforming your internal fear response, that counts even more.
That's the moment you stop letting the external define your internal.
That's the moment you take your power back.
If transforming our circumstances comes from within, let's shift to the relationship between purpose and self-worth. When a purpose is, deeply inspiring vision that's bigger than yourself, how does that help?
When you commit to a vision that's focused on contribution, not just accumulation, The most important reward isn't the final achievement. It's not the trophy.
What is it then?
The true reward is who you become in the process of pursuing that vision. When your focus shifts from what can I get to what can I give, your self-esteem automatically rises.
That seems so counterintuitive to the way we're taught, that achievement drives happiness.
It reflects a universal law.
Yep.
What you give, you multiply. You see it everywhere in nature. It's the complete opposite of human law, which says what you give, you lose.
And focusing on that universal law, on contribution.
Self-esteem, vitality, and health become the natural, effortless byproducts.
But to pursue that purpose, you often have to confront those old injuries. If past wounds are holding you back, how do you heal them? The sources talk about embracing the inner child, which resides crucially in the present.
That is such an important distinction. We see trauma as this fixed thing in the past, but its effects are active right now, in this moment, shaping our behavior.
There's an analogy in the sources for this, right? The tree.
The sequoia tree, yeah. Imagine a slice from a tree that's thousands of years old. You might see a visible crack in one of the very first growth rings near the center, and that crack extends almost all the way to the bark.
So a trauma from when the tree was small just prolongs itself.
It impacts every single layer of adult life that grows around it.
So if that inner child, that early crack, is still reacting in the present, what's the first step to begin healing it?
The first step is what the sources call soltar. It translates as letting go.
Letting go of what?
Of your self-accusations, your judgments, your declarations of guilt, and your self-punishments. This is the hardest part for most people.
Because that self-talk is so automatic. The second you make a mistake, you hear that voice. I'm so clumsy, or I never get it right.
I deserve bad things.
Yeah. The way you interrupt that flow is you replace the judgment with curiosity.
So instead of the automatic negative thought,
You create a space, a pause. And in that space, instead of judging, you just ask, what is behind this? Why did I react that way? You sit in the silence and let the real reasons reveal themselves. You are consciously removing that veil of self-accusation so that the light of genuine understanding can get in.
we are so much harder on ourselves than on anyone else. Why this obsession with perfectionism and self-punishment?
Because we misunderstand where our errors come from. They aren't born of malice. They stem from a profound ignorance of our reality at that time. We have to see life as a continuous learning school.
A game where sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Exactly. You wouldn't expect a first grader to understand calculus, yet we hold our present self accountable for the ignorance of our past self. We need radical self-compassion. And that compassion is key to accessing that state of flow, or wu-wei. Action without action. It sounds so passive.
But it's the opposite of friction. Flow is the natural state of alignment. Friction, that feeling of constantly pushing and struggling, is what's unnatural. And wu-wei requires humility.
Humility. How so?
It's recognizing you can't do it alone. The wind, the universe, whatever you want to call it, wants to move you in the right direction. Humility is about letting go of the arrogance that you have to impose your will on everything through sheer struggle.
It's letting the true source of your worth guide the sail instead of frantically paddling against the current.
Precisely. And that humility is what defines true greatness. We see it in Nobel laureates. Immense brilliance, matched only by their genuine desire to listen and connect. That's the real power that comes from deep, settled self-esteem.
So we look back across this whole deep dive.
I think 3 points really stand out. First, self-esteem is intrinsic. It's a re-knowing of your own foundational value.
Second, we have to choose responsibility, our capacity to respond, over being a victim of our past.
And finally, healing the self requires that conscious act of soltar, of letting go of self-judgment to make space for genuine curiosity and growth.
And that growth, as our sources remind us, is fueled by enthusiasm, which literally means God in the person. Enthusiasm contributes to vitality, to better health, to prosperity.
And while our circumstances, they absolutely influence our lives, they're real, they do not and must not determine our capacity for joy.
We always have the power to bring joy to ourselves and to others.
It's about actively peeling away those layers of blame and labels and self-accusations that have veiled your intrinsic light.
That light is always there. Our sources reference Leonard Cohen, who said, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Our negative self-talk is the veil covering that light. And our past hurts are the cracks, just waiting to be healed and illuminated.
Beautifully put.
So here's the provocative thought for you to carry forward today, drawing directly from this deep dive. If you choose to perform the radical act of soltar today, What is the single most destructive act of accusation you would drop to start letting the light into your life?